We shouldn't be limited by what the Canadian law allows or what the American laws allow, or we're not supposed to be limited in our solidarity with what the Zionists want us to be or what Israel wants us to be. We have to be able to take action and support people and break that siege ourselves with money, with medicine, with support, with the word out, with everything, every mean possible. This is 1.5 million people at stake. It's not 50 people. And I'm sorry, it's not the same number as the settlers in Sderot and in the other settlements. The security of these lives are nothing compared to the security of the 1.5 million people who are being starved to death. Think about somebody who's living in Sderot, and think about somebody who's living in Gaza having nothing. Absolutely nothing. What are you going to do? You're going to sit there and wait like a duck? You're going to resist. And resistance is guaranteed by the international law and by the justice, by international law and by the justice of our own decisions. We have to make that choice. Thank you.
Last month when the wall came down, I know, and I think like all of you, I cheered inside to see the Palestinian people take down that wall, and I'm very happy to be here today with all of us, and we can cheer together for the brave, heroic, and long-suffering Palestinian people and the direct action they took to end their imprisonment, at least temporarily, and flood into Egypt. So we're here today to cheer that on. And with the bringing down of the wall, bringing down that wall in Gaza, the border between Gaza and Egypt, that makes one wall down in Palestine and one illegal apartheid wall to go. And it's up to us here in Canada, the United States, and in the West in general that backs Israel. We have to do our part to campaign to bring down the illegal apartheid wall in Palestine. So we're saying today to Mr. Harper, we want the siege on Gaza ended. Last month, we want it ended immediately. We want to end to Canada's shameful complicity. Canada has really become a rogue state on this issue and other foreign policy issues. Last month at the Human Rights Council at the UN, Canada stood alone, the only country to shamefully cast a vote against a resolution to end the siege on Gaza. That is a shame that our government did that. In the summer of 2006, we had a number of rallies right on these steps here with more than 1,000 people from the Lebanese community when our Prime Minister shamefully said that that was a measured response. The killing of over 1,000 Lebanese civilians, the destruction of much of the infrastructure of the country. Harper called that a measured response, and we should never forget that disgusting support of the war crimes in the summer of 2006. That's a shame as well. So the Stop War Coalition, we came together around the issue of Iraq, but that's been 5 years now, and since then governments like Harper's, Bush's, Olmert, Blair, and his new clone, Gordon Brown, what they've been doing to the whole region, they've been Palestinianizing the people of that whole region. And I just wanted to say one other thing, keeping this oppression going. It's been more than 40 years and more than 60 years since the dispossession of the Palestinian people, more than 40 years since the 67 occupation. One of the things that keeps this going is the cowardice and the silence of our political leaders, many of whom know better, many of whom don't speak up just because of the fear and the pressure that's brought down on them. And this guy running for president in the US that you may have heard something about, Obama, a couple months ago he slipped up and he said, quote, nobody has suffered more than the Palestinians. He said this, and then the next day or in the following days, he had to retract that statement and qualify it so as to say that it was the Palestinians' fault that they have suffered over the years, that it was the fault of their leaders and not the fault of the people occupying them. And I think that kind of political cowardice is evident in Canada as well, and it's a real shame that the opposition parties, with a few notable MPs as exception, have been unable to speak out against the siege in Gaza, unable to speak out as the Harper government has become, if not #1, in the top 3 of the Western governments in shamefully, one-sidedly supporting Israel. So what Obama said in that slip-up was correct. No one has suffered more than the Palestinians, but I think also no one has consistently resisted in a more inspiring way. And so I think no people in the world today demand our concerted solidarity and ongoing effort more than the Palestinian people. That's what we're here to do today.
Bush, Harper, shame on you! Palestinians are dying because you!
It's been mentioned by our previous speakers, the security of Israeli citizens and settlers, particularly in the town of Sderot, which borders the north of the Gaza Strip. This is something that we hear about repeated ad nauseum by the Israeli government and by the Canadian government in turn. The need for the security of the Israeli citizens, which seems to suffice as a justification for the crimes against the Palestinian people. So what are these rocket attacks that we're talking about in Sderot? This is the pinnacle of the sophistication of Palestinian arms. Rockets which have virtually no guidance whatsoever, which in total have now killed 12 people since their inception. Now we need to compare this death toll of 12 people to the several thousand Palestinians who've been killed in this same time. 1,000 Palestinian people killed just in the last 2 years alone, in the time when these 12 citizens were killed. So we need to put these death tolls in context here. Yuval Diskin, the head of the Shin Bet, the Israeli Secret Service, was recently bragging that over 1,000 terrorists have been killed in Gaza since the election of the Hamas government. Indeed, more than 1,000 people have been killed in the Gaza Strip, and we need to look at who these terrorists that Diskin are talking about. Does that include 116 children under the age of 18 who were killed in 1 year alone in 2006? Does that include the 44 people who were killed just in 1 week in January? Or does that include the Atamna family, for example, whose house was occupied by the Israeli Defense Forces and used as a military base from which they killed more than 100 people in Beit Hanun? And the following day, when they left that home, airstrikes killed 16 members of that one single family who were killed while they were sleeping in their own homes. We're talking about young children, infants here. This is who we're talking about when we hear that 1,000 alleged terrorists have been killed in the Gaza Strip.
Hello, I bring you greetings from Jews for Just Peace, and now I'm going to speak on my own behalf. The United Nations produced the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which Israel subscribed to, signed up on. And so the world was determined, never again are we going to allow this kind of thing to happen. And Israel signed up to the 4th Geneva Convention protocols. And there's 189 countries in the world responsible for ensuring that we stick to the Geneva Conventions. And Israel is breaking those conventions in Gaza, and with the help of the Canadian state, getting away with it. And what are the supporters of Israel in the Jewish population in Vancouver doing right now? In their newspapers and in their emails, I'm getting stuff about the hate fest which we are having here today. Now, I'm not here because I hate anybody. I'm here because it really hurts me that 12 people have died in Israel unnecessarily from these rockets. If this hurts me, you can imagine how overwhelming it is to know that probably more than 50% of Palestinian children have brain damage from malnutrition, and it is Israel's responsibility in terms of the Geneva Conventions to look after the people it occupies. They have not done that. And then they tell us in all these newspapers that this is a one-sided affair because we only talk about what Israel has done and we don't talk about the suicide bombers and the rockets and all the rest of it. But the thing about the Geneva Conventions that matter here is that it's got to do with occupation and your responsibilities in an occupation. And it's not the same as Belgium and Auschwitz, but it is the same arrogant disrespect for human rights, for human dignity,